I did a video called Why Spider-Man Brand New Day is Making Grown Men Cry. I talked about the theme of the movie, which is human connection makes us a better version of ourselves. And I mentioned two movies that use the same theme, The Incredibles and Shrek. Today I'm going to dig deeper into those movies. All three use the same theme in different ways. Then I'm going to talk about a movie I worked on a long time ago that fell apart, like most projects do, that had a similar theme, and what I learned while working on the project with a more established writer. I already talked a lot about Peter Parker's arc, so I won't repeat myself too much, but to sum it up, Peter insists on being alone to protect his loved ones. Punisher is used as a cautionary tale of what Peter could become if he doesn't let people in. Jean Grey is used as an even darker cautionary tale of what Peter might have become had he not had the love and compassion of Aunt May. Peter tries to copy Bruce Banner's technique of suppressing his true nature, which MJ tells him is a bad idea. In the end, he realizes shutting himself off from his loved ones didn't protect them, and it hurt him dearly. I don't want to repeat myself, so check out the video if you haven't seen it. Then there's Mr. Incredible. In the opening scene, he tells a child, "I work alone." But he doesn't work alone because he fears putting loved ones in danger. He does it because he believes needing help would show weakness. He has a playful exchange with Elastigirl before we know she's his fiancée, where she jokingly tells him he needs to be more flexible. Yeah, that's gonna come back. They get married, things look great. Then he gets sued and superheroes are forced to retire. Cut 2 years later, he's miserable working a crappy job. But wait, his wife isn't miserable. She adjusted to being a mom and raising children because she knows that being a good parent is being a hero. Anyone who gets married understands you have to be flexible, so the two of you can make each other stronger. And if you have kids, you have to be even more flexible, but it makes you a more complete person. Bob Parr doesn't see that. He's annoyed Dash is having a graduation ceremony for going from one grade to the next. He's like the grumpy dad who complains about kids these days and their participation trophies, which I get may have gone a little too far, but those participation trophy ceremonies may have been a good excuse for some grumpy dads to actually participate in their kids' lives. Bob lies to his wife so he and Frozone could go play superhero. When she finds out, she tells him he's so busy reliving his glory days that he is missing out on what is happening now. When Mr. Incredible gets the chance to flex his powers, he jumps at it. Turns out to be a trap, set by the very kid he spurned all those years ago. He's caught, but lo and behold, his wife comes to rescue him along with the kids who stowed away. He realizes he was so afraid of being undervalued that he undervalued his family. He was so caught in the past, he almost missed his present. The family work as a team, each using their unique gifts. They get off the island, battle the giant robot, and if you want to see his transformation spelled out perfectly, here it is.
My husband, I'm with you. For better or worse.
I have to do this alone.
What is this to you? Playtime?
No.
So you can be Mr. Incredible again?
No!
Then what? What is it?
I'm not...
Not what?
I'm not strong enough.
Strong enough, and this will make you stronger?
Yes. No!
That's what this is? Some sort of workout?
I can't lose you again!
Then they defeat the enemy together, and Bob Parr learns that insisting on working alone doesn't mean you're strong. It means you're pig-headed. He commits to his family and realizes they're way more precious than being on the cover of a magazine. Quick story. I know a guy who played high school football, and many years later his son played football in the same high school with the same coach. The coach gave a speech to the son's team and told them this was the best team he'd ever coached. Most dads would have realized how precious that moment was. But not this dad. He spent the car ride home berating his son, telling him, "My high school team was way better than yours." Yeah, son's an adult now and barely speaks to the dad. Someone needed Mrs. Incredible to tell that dad, it's not about you. Now on to Shrek. Shrek is very happy alone in a swamp. Then Lord Farquaad orders his knights to round up fairy tale creatures. Shrek scares them away, but the others aren't so lucky. Donkey finds Shrek, who can't understand why he isn't scared of him. Shrek still wants nothing to do with him, but eventually Donkey wears him down and he reluctantly agrees to let him stay the night. Then the rest of the fairy tale creatures show up and Shrek is not happy. He goes on a mission to find Farquaad with the sole purpose of getting these creatures out of his swamp. Meanwhile, Farquaad has decided to marry Princess Fiona, but he has to rescue her from her tower guarded by a dragon. Since Farquaad is a fuckwad, he gets Shrek to rescue Fiona for him, offering to clear the swamp if he succeeds. Shrek and Donkey go on the quest, and little by little, Shrek starts to let his guard down. We get the ogres are like onions speech. Bada beep, bada boop, they rescue the princess from the tower. Fiona is not happy that Shrek did the rescuing, saying she needed to be rescued by her true love. They journey on, walls start to come down, they start to like each other. Shrek is way too scared to tell her because he can't believe she'd like him because, he ugly. They rest for the night, and we find out Fiona turns into an ogre every night at sunset until she finds true love's kiss, which she thinks is Farquaad. Donkey finds her in ogre form, and Shrek overhears part of their conversation and assumes Fiona can't love him because he's ugly, when in fact she was the one she referred to as ugly. Well, since Shrek doesn't want to face rejection, he rejects her first and goes to Farquaad's and brings the guards back. The next day, Fiona tries to tell him she has feelings for him, but he shoots her down. He thinks that she thinks he's ugly, but she interprets it as him thinking she's ugly. Farquaad's guards take Fiona, and Shrek goes back to the swamp, having gotten what he wanted, to be alone. Only now he's come to realize he doesn't really want to be alone. But after the rejection, he puts his walls up again. We've all been there. I mean, not in a swamp, but getting dumped and curling up on the couch hunched over a pint of ice cream. Donkey comes back and explains the truth about the misheard conversation. Shrek interrupts the wedding and professes his true love. Fiona waits for the sun to go down to show him her true form. They kiss. She stays an ogre and can't understand why she's not beautiful. But Shrek tells her he thinks she is beautiful. They all live happily ever after and have many beautiful sequels together. So there you have it. 3 movies with the same theme, the same character arc, all done completely differently, but all done really well. Some people like to describe theme as the question the film asks. Well, even though all 3 movies do the transformation from I work alone to I need human connection, they all ask a different question. Spiderman Brand New Day asks, what does it mean to be a hero? The Incredibles asks, what does it mean to be strong? And Shrek asks, what is the real definition of beauty? That's kind of neat. Now, the story of the movie I worked on that fell apart, it was a long time ago, the year 2000. I was working on a show called Blind Date, the one with the thought bubbles. I was young and needed the money. One of the other writers was a guy named Peter Carlin. We became fast friends, and Peter had an idea for a kids movie. He said, I love James Bond movies, and I love talking animal movies. I had this idea where a James Bond type character is on a mission, gets shot, is about to die, but they take him back to the gadget guy, and he's got this cutting edge technology where they could take the contents of one person's mind and transport it into another brain. The only catch is, they've only perfected it on animals, so they have to zap the spy's brain into a dog's body. Then the spy completes the mission as a wimpy little lapdog. I said, cute idea. He said, we should write it together. I said, sure, it sounded fun. I had just come off writing on Bill Nye the Science Guy, which is a children's show, and I had a comedy background, whereas Peter had worked in development, so our talents complemented each other. We worked on the story, fleshed it out, and came up with some really funny bits. We both had a mutual friend who was a screenwriter who had gotten a couple of movies made. I said, why don't we tell him what we've got and see if he has any pointers? I honestly was just hoping he'd say, cute idea, and give us a couple of notes, but instead he said, dudes, this is very sellable. If you want, I could come on as producer and we could pitch it to the studios with you guys as screenwriters. We said yes. We spent the next few weeks getting the outline into pitch shape with our established screenwriter friend giving us notes. And in those few weeks, I learned more than I did in 4 years of college. The first thing he came up with was to give the spy character the I work alone to I need people arc. This was before Shrek and The Incredibles, mind you. We went back to our outline with this note and tweaked it. The opening scene wasn't much different than the original scene we had. Spy gets shot during a mission, gets his brain zapped into a dog, but we had him say, I work alone to his superior in the beginning. We took it back to our screenwriter friend and he said, no. You have to design the scene so that his insistence on working alone is what causes him to get shot. This has to be the flaw that keeps holding him back. Then, when he becomes a dog, he can't bear the thought of someone else helping him finish his mission, so he goes it alone. Even as a dog, he won't ask for help. He keeps repeating the same mistake over and over until, for the first time in his life, he learns to accept help. Then he grows as a person. Something in my brain clicked. Have you ever been in math class where you just don't get it no matter how many times the teacher explains it, but then someone explains it in a different way, and you go, aha. This was that light bulb moment for me. Working on this silly little kids movie made me realize theme isn't something you tack on. It's not something you could tweak into existence. It needs to permeate every aspect of the story. It's not enough for your character to have flaws. You have to design the story to make full use of those flaws. Some people call this the flaw that keeps holding the character back, or the lie the character believes. It's all over the place now, but there were a lot less resources for writers back then, so it was vital information to me. But his lesson made me realize that once you zero in on a story's theme, everything that doesn't fit needs to be dropped. Some of the funny bits Peter and I came up with would have to be cut because they didn't serve what the story had evolved into. A beginning writer will tweak a line or two of dialogue so they could save a bunch of what they had written. Good writing is not about saving what you've written. It's about redesigning everything to make the story work. And that may mean throwing out a lot of what you've done. Let's look back at the movies I talked about with this in mind. The Incredibles didn't randomly choose to make Mr. Incredible's superpower super strength and Mrs. Incredible's power flexibility. Those powers served the story they were trying to tell. He was obsessed with being strong enough, and she realized true strength meant being flexible. Who knows how many drafts they went through to get there, but I'm sure there was a lot of great stuff they threw out once they narrowed in on the theme of the story. And Shrek didn't randomly make Fiona turn into an ogre every night for a simple shock. It was central to the idea of the movie exploring the idea of what is considered beautiful. If that wasn't the question the film was asking, they would have had to jettison that idea and come up with something that fit. That's why these two children's movies resonated with adults and still resonate 20 plus years later. The writers probably threw out a lot of stuff that didn't work instead of saving what they had written with a simple tweak. This is a lesson I use in everything I've written since then. In my novel, Falling into Shadow, I can't tell you how many hundreds of pages had to be tossed out because they didn't fit what the story had become. Once the "what is this story really about" crystallizes, you have to jettison everything that doesn't fit, even if you think it's great. So what happened to our little spy dog movie? Well, some studios liked it, but it turned out there was a movie in post-production called Cats and Dogs, a movie where cats and dogs are super spies. And that kind of killed our movie. It happens. Sometimes someone gets a similar idea first. And you may say, hey, isn't your movie basically the same story as Spies in Disguise, which came out in 2019? Yeah. Pretty much, except it had a bird instead of a dog, and I have no idea what the theme is because I haven't seen it. That happens too. Sometimes someone makes a movie based on an idea you had years earlier. No biggie. By then you've moved on to something else, where you've probably thrown out a lot of what you've written to make the story work.